Khalkhali, who asked me not to embarrass him by saying anything nice, so I won't. I will leave you to determine all those nice things I could have said about him, to judge those from his presentation instead. What I will say is that we are very fortunate to have him here at LSUS. The poet about whom he is speaking, Basij Khalkhali, visited the United States himself once. Dr. Peterson may be able to tell me the year in which he died in 1995, so it was before 1995, trying to find someone who would translate his work, and in particular, his epic about Abraham Lincoln, which is what Shahab is going to speak to us about today. Thank you.
Hello. Finally, the cameraman shows up. To speak about the legacies of Abraham Lincoln abroad, and especially among the hostile nations, seems to most scholars, and especially Lincoln scholars, a hopeless job. But paying a visit to the collection room of International Lincoln Center, or taking a look at the list of Dr. Peterson's work, can prove that today Abraham Lincoln is appreciated abroad by both enemies and friends. And it may come to you as a surprise that this currently unfriendly and anti-American country once dedicated his second and last epic poem to Abraham Lincoln. The first one had been written 10 centuries ago on a whole lot of kings before the rise of Islam. Back in the 1950s, when they were on a better terms with us, a young poet who was hardly 30 years old came across a biography of Lincoln. He said, "Oh my God, I have found my spiritual and political hero. Let's write a poem about him." He did. Then he felt that he had not done any justice to the president. Let's write another one. And he kept writing and writing for 15 years. The result of this 15-year journey into the life and leadership of Lincoln came out and published in 1965, the 100th anniversary of the president's assassination. And it was named the Woodcutter's Epic. The young man was called Basij Khalkhali. He was born on April 16, 1918, in northwestern Iran, in a small town. Unfortunately, Basij was born into a poor and humble family. His grandfather had been a rich merchantman who had some trade relationships with the former Soviet countries. But during his last years, he had bankrupted and had handed down some debts to his children. Basij's father was one of them. The little kid was born into such an impoverished family. But the grandfather had not, or would not deprive the young grandson of an ancestral asset, which was poetry. Ancestors of Basij are said to have been good poets, at least some of them. And thanks to this rich pedigree, the young kid wrote his first poem at the age of 5, 1 year before going to school. He received his formal education in his hometown, and after high school, he left to Tehran, the capital of Iran, to attend college, probably for 2 years. When he was 25, he published his first epic, his first book of poetry. During his years in Tehran, he had a horrible fever. They took him to hospital. It was so dangerous. He was supposed to die. He was hospitalized for 72 days. One night he got sick of himself and life and went to commit suicide. He left the room one evening to find a corner in the yard to do his mission. But the nerves came across him. he was experienced and could read the mind of the young poet from his eyes. My son, don't do this foolish thing. You are not supposed to die. It's a deadly sin. You are rebelling against God. Stay one more week and be patient. I'm sure you'll get better. Basich changed his mind that night. 1 week later, he was released healthily from the hospital. He came home and said, in honor of that nurse who saved my life, I'm going to write a book on the ethics of nurses and their importance. So he did. During the 1950s, he came across the biography of Lincoln and started writing about him. 15 years later, he published Muqaddas Epic. The University of Tehran, which was the highest authority in evaluating literary works of that time, decided that it was worth to be nominated for the Nobel Literature Prize. The first time ever in the Iranian history, and the second time in the history of Asia, after, I guess, Tagore from India. They did so, but it was rejected, but it was not in English. Have you translated in English? That's okay, consider it. He could not find someone. After that, he was motivated by his people from the hometown to represent them at the parliament. He accepted and did many services to his people. During the turmoil and the hostilities of political life in Iran, he published his own newspaper called The National Honor. And it was harshly critical of the current events and the system. He closed it down immediately. He kept writing books till his death in 1995, 1 year after his first and last visit to the United States and the Lincoln Memorial. Before his death, he kept writing poetry, and his poetic industry became as huge, as diverse as it was. Here we have another miniature from young poet. Basich's mind was primarily divided between two groups of people, two walks of life. I like to call the first group children of eternity, those who we cannot ignore, the ones that have made their imprint and left it on history and our current life. Like whom? Abraham Lincoln, Buddha, Albert Schweitzer, a German and French physician who made missionary work in Africa and received the Peace Prize of 1965. Alfred Nobel, a regretful scientist, because Basich was criticizing him for discovering dynamite. On the other side of the story, or the other hemisphere of his mind, was belonging to another walks of life. The ones that daily we ignore them, we see them. No poet sits down to bother write a book on these kind of people and these professions. Maybe just one poet, not just a complete book. But Basich was a poet. It was not his muse, poetic inspiration was not from divinity or heaven. They were among ordinary people. He could be inspired even by beggars. Let's write a book about them. He did. Farmers, gardeners, teachers, and nurses that you just heard the story about. And I forgot to say, the first two books are currently under translation, sponsored by the International Lincoln Center and with Dr. Liebowitz. But unfortunately, due to the harsh censorship on the works of Basich at home, today no one knows his name, that he was once living and writing for these people, and his books cannot be found. Thanks to the sacrifices and dedications of this lovely couple, who are his daughter, Mrs. Farah Basich, and her husband, Esther Dariush Zoltakharian. Today we have access to all the material on a decent and artistically created website. We have compiled, organized, typed, and put all the material on a website for public access. As a poet and as a man of letters, Basich had some distinct features that make him stand out in history, both at home and abroad. He wrote 15 books, but most of them were not published. He did not receive the reward of his dedications. He was the son of his time, the war-torn century. He was born at the end of WW1. He experienced WW2. He experienced at home the revolution, then Iran-Iraq war. So he decided to dedicate himself to peace. He calls himself poet of peace in most of his poems. He was, as I was just saying, the only literature Nobel Prize candidate in our history. Although the court sponsored him to publish the Woodcutter's Epic because it was a hugely expensive project, in his other works, like the Book of Beggars, he criticized them. Told the Shah and his men are because of this inequality and poverty in society. When he was at the parliament, unlike other people, he used to read poetry. His political speech were in poetry, often in 5 pages or more. When did they invite him to silence? Not at all. Did they interrupt him? Most often. When he was finishing each stanza, the excited, passionate speaker of the parliament would cry out, "Nice going, man, go ahead." And he kept reading his poems. I'm afraid they did not pay attention to the message. He just tried to be anxious about the rhyme, literal figures, if it is a pentameter or so on and so forth. Basich's views on gender and the roles of men and women during history are another common feature of his books. In the epic, for this purpose of this study, we came across his attitude toward the roles of men and women in history and how they helped to make history. And we tried to explain it in terms of the theory of interpersonal relations, attraction or relation. In this theory, men are taken to be success objects, meaning the men of power have access to resources, economic and political. There are some smart, seductive women around who don't have access to these resources. They want to exchange it, get access to these successes and resources. Women exchange their sex and beauty to reach the resources. And men exchange their success to reach sex with these type of women. History is full of such examples. And Basich takes them specifically in the epic book, attack on them and put the blame of this bloody history both on this kind of women and men. Like who? Caesar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon, King Solomon and Queen of Sheba, so on and so forth. And he uses this theory and this gender idea to compare Lincoln with the past leaders of society. He believed that Lincoln could not and was not manipulated by such kind of women to use his power to reach their goals. When we are reading any poet, immediately we decide that this poet is warmly talking about one group, talking to a class or race warmly and leaving the rest of the readers cold. For example, we have William Wordsworth, he's the poet of nature, Lord Byron, the poet of the youth, and the majority of other minor and major poets wrote about their sweethearts, love. But after our discussions with Dr. Ligon, we decided that Basij deserves the title of the universal poet of virtues and morality. He was concerned about the ways of government to the people and the ways of people to each other. In the epic book, we came across 7 commandments and rules that, according to Basij, shape a body of law to make a utopia. And he believed that Abraham Lincoln was practicing all of them during his leadership. What are they? As a poet of peace, he was against bloodshed, so anyone who sheds an innocent blood is the enemy of society. Those who seek peace and try to practice charity are our friends. Unlike Machiavelli, he did not say that the ruler should be feared, not loved. He said the ruler is the mother of the country. He's not supposed to discriminate one group against the other. Let's be kind and just to everybody in our society. So the ruler is supposed to unite all of them through a thread of love. Most astonishingly, he was a Muslim, but he knew much more than most of us about Christianity. And he respected Jesus Christ so much that if he was supposed to be arrested for being a Christian, he could be immediately convicted based on his writings. He believed that the eternal peace is in the Bible. People are supposed to follow the lines in the Bible and reach it. He described the world as a house with 2 doors. We come through one door and go out through the other. Those doors are birth and death. No one is supposed to stay for a long time in this house. So let's not break a heart or be harsh with each other. Basij's definition of slavery was far more extensive than what the literal term means. He believed those who are deprived of the rules that we have in the First Amendment of our Constitution are slaves. Anyone who has no right of criticism, expression, free mobility across lands, a free will, is a slave. And finally, believe that all men are equal. They are the light of God, fruits of a single tree, that we should treat them equally. So why did Basij choose Lincoln as a youth and as the subject of the second epic book, Persian? In one of his interviews, he said Lincoln did not receive a mother with love. He lost his mother when he was too young. But his heart was not overwhelmed with revenge. He was not a slave, but loved the slaves and worked for them. And it cost him his life. He loved everyone unconditionally. That's why I am dedicated to him. As I just said, the epic book is the second in our history. What about those 10 centuries before Basij? Did not we have any more rulers? Did not all those rulers deserve one book altogether? Probably. The most astonishing feature about epic book and Abraham Lincoln is that our first epic book is about a collection of kings before Islam, not just one. But Abraham Lincoln, being a foreigner, leader, claimed the second book just for himself. Did not share it with any national leader in Iran. What is an epic? Epic is a long, elevated poem that celebrates a national, historical, religious idea or significant matter. Basij here breaks the tradition and makes a tradition of himself about an internationally respected man, not a national one. In the book that's composed of 500 pages, you have over 14,000 lines of poetry and 20 pages of prose. These 14,000 lines are divided among 134 poets. In order not to make it boring, in his long poems, he breaks it up into several forms of poetry: sonnets, ghazal, pure couplets, stanzas, so on and so forth. Although he declares in his poem, Cry of Silence, that the aim of his book is to reveal the secrets of Lincoln's life and leadership. And the way of understanding these secrets, we come across so many different figures: divine, human, and animals. You have God himself, that during the visit that Basij pays to paradise, to find a trace of Lincoln. So far we have Dr. Peterson on Earth to find the traces of Lincoln, and up there, Basij. You have Jesus Christ, some angel. Then we come down to the human level: Moses, Buddha, some celebrities like Gandhi, some international leaders, collection of a group of philosophers, musicians, and poets, that Basij calls them children of eternity. All of them, some of them belong in times before Lincoln, some is contemporary, and some after him, but all of them praise Lincoln. And the setting, in terms of place, it's a journey in time and the world, even divine realm. So it is not specific to just the United States. We can find three trends of thought in the book. Some of the poems are written on a specific event, like the birth of Lincoln, his assassination, becoming a lawyer, practicing law, and signing the Emancipation Proclamation that claims the longest poem of the book. Over 50% of the book is about the rights of the slaves, that it should be restored for them, that they are equal to the white people. And at last, we have the ideas of some leaders and important figures talk about Basij, those divine, human, and animal that talk about Lincoln, that he is the best leader. Basij uses some animal as a sarcastic way to invite human beings to peace. We have some vultures that are frustrated. If human beings make peace, they do not war, we will die from starvation. So let's cry that we keep fighting each other and leaving the corpses out there for us. No Lincoln book has ever been published abroad so artistically, so dramatically, and so expensively illustrated. With each poem, we have a respected painter who drew it, called Muhammad Tajidi. The pictures are original and just drawn for the purpose of this book. Most of them have taken the theme from the content of the poet. For example, in this picture, we have Abraham Lincoln carrying a log, meaning the leader, an ideal leader, is lifting a log from a burden from the back of his citizens. In the background, we have an Eastern typical king that is accompanied by his attendants and armed men. Lincoln is alone. This picture goes with the poem The Frustrated Gardener. Metaphorically, Lincoln was the gardener of the Union. When the flowers that he once planted grow and flourish, the gardener was nowhere to lie. So they have covered the coffin with the flowers that he once grew in his garden in the United States. Lincoln was the second president in our history to give out pardons to the deserters from the Civil War. This picture goes with hanging deserters, a long poem praising those pardons that Lincoln gave to the escaping soldiers. This picture, we have Satan working on the mind of John Booth from childhood till he grew up, using some materials like wine, seductive women, and motivating the slaver to hire him to assassinate the president they give. Another important lesson that Basij learned from Lincoln was charity. Basij was the father of the poor and the needy. In spite of, apart from his 5 other children, he used to bring home some orphans and take care of them, pay for their education, and recommend his family and his wife, children to take care of the poor guy for a while. The ice water that may remind most of us of the challenge that was common last year, ice water buckets. 40 years ago, Basij poured ice water buckets on the shoulder of his leaders and the leaders of society to make them aware of their duties to the poor and raise charity in society. Basij used to see a girl on the streets of Tehran that was selling ice water during the hot season in summer. He kept an eye on her for a while. Noticed that at night the girl was sleeping among the garbage, behind the garbage can. He was astonished, unlike other people, that they used to see such things every day, but let it go, ignore them. He asked the girl, "What's wrong with you, my girl? We're living here. I come from the southern village of Iran. We're here. Where are your parents? They are dead. Don't you have anyone here to take care of you? I have just a brother that is taking his military service. So why don't you go to work for a family as a babysitter or a maiden?" I did, but one night their son tried to rape me. I escaped. But she was impressed. He came home and wrote a poem on the girl, called it The Ice Water Girl, in which the girl is talking about her hopes and fears, her dreams, that she wants to become a candle of life in a family, have her own children, have a comfortable house. Basij again felt that he had not done justice to the poor girl. He came back to her. "I'm sorry, my girl, I don't have enough money right now to support you with your ideal. But you can have my word that one day, I hope it will not be long from now, I'll be back to fulfill my promise to you." Let's keep it here. Jump ahead a few years, meet another guy. Hassan Shojai, a young teacher at the time, was singing. He was not famous, had not done any serious job to make a name and a fame in Iranian music industry. When the epic book came out, he came across the book while reading one of the poems called The Postman. He was impressed. If I turn this into a song, I have established my reputation. I have done my job. That's enough for me. With hardship, he found Basij. Do you let me turn this poem into a song? No. The more he insisted, the more he rejected. While leaving the room, the young man said, "But sir, if you had let me, it would save my future, my name." Basich said, "Are you sure?" "Yes, I am. So go ahead and turn it into a song." He did. The song came out in 1975. Immediately it became a national feat and a big achievement in the history of Iranian music. Both Iranians at home and abroad knew Hassan Shojai, the name Postman. It became a household name and matter. But the poet, Basich, no one knew the poem is his. The singer became rich. One day he came back to Basich with a sum of $3,000. "Sir, I want to buy the poem from you." He did. Basich was not a poet to write for money. He used the money that he made from poetry to charity. He was reminded of a poor girl. She was still on the streets. One day he went and found her. "Do you know me, my girl?" "Yes, sir. I am about to accomplish my promise I gave you a few years ago." And the money was enough to get the girl a house and arrange her marriage. So what was this poem that saved the life of two people, a hapless, a homeless girl, and a young, otherwise unknown singer? The Postman is a poem in which the whole institution of slavery appears in the likeness of one slave talking to a postman, that is, Lincoln himself, who before practicing law or taking office was a postman. Talking to him, "Where is my letter? For centuries we have been waiting. The doomsday is coming. We want our letter." The letter being the Emancipation Proclamation. The message of the document not only freed millions of slaves at home, but saved the future of two young guys in Iran. I want to finish the presentation with a song. It's a video clip that we have made with the help of Dr. Lieber of the Postman that contains some pictures from Basich, his family, and their visit to the Lincoln Memorial in 1994, 1 year before his death. It also has some pictures from the epic book. We could translate the song into English, and you can read it, the subtitles.
شیر شد بنده بیچاره
despite all efforts, gone a little bit over time. Where's Dr. Peterson? What do you want to do at this point? Just move straight on, have a quick break?
Yeah, I have 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay, 4 or 5 minutes to question Shahar.
Thank you for your presentation. Just out of curiosity, could you tell us something about Bashir's view of U.S. policy in the Middle East, and especially about U.S. involvement in Iran between 53 and 79? If he had any
It did not
view.
specifically write about these political issues between the two countries. He was mostly interested in the role of Abraham Lincoln among all American leaders, but not others. He did not mention anyone of them. But just we saw a picture of JFK when Lincoln was in paradise, receiving him after the assassination. That's the only point that we have another American president which works.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Have you tried to have a movie made of Basij?
Make a movie?
Yes, sir.
I'm just a translator.
Well, have you ever tried to, you should try to approach some filmmakers.
Maybe
It's
one
a
day.
really interesting story that most
Translate
Americans have never heard.
Maybe. Good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do the illustrations, or who did the illustrations?
He hired painters to do them.
Okay.
He wanted it to be superb and rise above people. Any other questions? Thank you
Absolutely
again.
incredible presentation. You guys
you.
saw something
Beautiful.
unique and new. We'll take about a 3-minute break. Bring up the break.
Oh, what's good?
Oh, thank God.
I hear the bell ring.
Yeah.